In Myanmar, meth production is cheap, quick, and large-scale. Estimates vary between 2 and 6 billion pills a year. That's more than the number of coffees Starbucks serves worldwide. Most of it is made in Shan State, which has ready access to precursor chemicals from China. It also has roads leading into Thailand, where the finished product is then trafficked to other countries. Shan State has become an ideal hiding place for meth labs, thanks to decades of civil wars. Vast areas of the state are still controlled by armed groups, both rebels and government forces. The drug trade is a huge moneymaker for all sides. The most powerful of the rebel groups is the United Wa State Army. They used to be famous for their heroin smuggling. Authorities in Myanmar and Thailand think they're now in the meth business. Notoriously secretive, journalists are rarely given access. But they have recently appointed a spokesperson who agrees to talk by phone.
Hi, my name is Pailin Waddell. I'm a reporter from Al Jazeera. Do you have time to answer a couple of questions?
He's surprisingly upfront about drugs being produced in Wa territory, but insists that it's all in the past.
Do you think there are any labs in your territory right now?
All the armed groups in Myanmar make a big show of their anti-drug efforts, with sporadic raids and televised drug burnings. Their true involvement in the meth trade is difficult to prove. The only one allowing us to see for ourselves is the Shan State Army South. It is Shan State Day, a celebration of resistance against the Myanmar military. Yodsuk is the de facto leader of this territory. As his army shows off its fighting skills, Shan people from across the state parade in their best outfits. It's an expensive affair for an army still fighting a civil war. Yodsuk and his soldiers are considered rebels by many in Myanmar, but here he is loved. And what he says is obeyed. No stranger to the drug trade, he once fought alongside the infamous drug kingpin Kun Sa, who was known for trafficking heroin worldwide. But these days, he says, the territory he controls is drug-free. This policy might sound harsh, but it has popular support.
We,
the Shan people, children and adults, don't want addicts here. If the Shan State Army South can clean out all the drugs, we, young and old, men and women, all agree with this policy.
Daika is a former Yaba addict who joined the army to get clean.
I would take 10 pills a day and 3 to 4 pills at a time. When I went to work, I secretly took the pills without my family knowing. When they found out, we fought a lot. They were disgusted with me.
He used to live in an area ruled by a patchwork of militias. There, dealers were easy to find.
When I bought it from a policeman. People told me he was both a dealer and police. He was part of a militia group and not afraid of anything.
Jaikaw says drugs are so enmeshed with authority, only tough policies like Yodsirk's death threats can stop it.
โลกเขามองเห็นยาเสพติดปัญหาใหญ่
The world says drugs are a huge
ยาเสพติด
problem,
เนี่ยมันมาจาก
and the rebels get all their money from
อาวุธเนี่ย
drugs.
มาจากทุนจากยาเสพติดมันไม่
But that's not true.
อย่างเช่นเราปราบปราม
We're
ยาเสพติด
eradicating
เนี่ยเราไม่
drugs.
ได้เอา
We're not getting money from drugs at all.
ผลกระทบของ
But reports suggest some armed groups in Myanmar earn money by providing safe passage for the traffickers. I ask him if it's true.
ไม่ได้เลยถ้าผ่านก็จับ
No. If they pass through here, we arrest them.
what is your source of income if not drugs?
เราเอาภาษี
We do tax everything not related
น
to
อกจากยาเสพ
drugs.
ติดอย่างเช่นไม่ว่ะ
Timber, gems, cattle, buffalo. We get plenty of money from that.
การเมืองเราไม่ก้าวหน้านะ
If we're mixed up with drugs, our nation won't progress. The international community wouldn't accept us because it's immoral. That's why I've decided to fight drugs.
อ่ะถ้าเจอว่าต้อง
If we see a meth lab, we shoot it up. No conversation.
ไม่ได้พูดอะไร
We get rid of them.
But those who have worked in anti-narcotics here are more skeptical. John Whalen is a retired United States drug enforcement agent. He worked with the DEA inside Myanmar for 25 years.
The Shan State Army South have told me that they're serious about eradicating drugs in their territory. How seriously can we take them?
I mean, personally, I wouldn't take them very seriously. They've said that for years. They'll put on shows for the benefit of the West, more or less, to say that they're serious about it. But they still benefit from the trade. They have to fund their army. They have to pay them somehow, feed them somehow. So there's too much financial benefit for them to be out of the trade.
Yodsirk denies any involvement and orders his right-hand man to take us on a patrol to prove it. Major Hongkam leads us to an area where he says they've destroyed methamphetamine labs.
We make sure that there's no drug traffickers smuggle their drugs into our area. That is why we are patrolling.
He brings me to a base on their border.
On the Shan-Thai border, there are modern laboratories, and we were able to read nine med labs.
What about the other 11?
More than 11. I'm not sure, should I say, this is under the Burmese control area and which is not in our control area.
ที่ยาเสพติดอยู่ที่ไหนเขารู้อะ
Everyone knows who is producing the
ข่าวมัน
drugs.
บ่งบอก
It's in the news.
DEA ก็รู้อะ
The
ข่าว
DEA knows. The
ปปส
narcotics
ก็รู้
police
ข่าว
in Thailand
ก็รู้
know.
ข่าวทำไม
Myanmar's
เขาไม่
own
ไป
government
ปราบที่
knows.
โรงงานที่ใหญ่ๆมันอะเพราะ
Why
อะไร
isn't anyone destroying those labs?
นะ
That's what I'd like to know.
Yodsirk points the finger firmly at groups aligned with the Myanmar military.
ผมว่า
I
ที่
think
ผ
the
ลิตมาก
biggest
ที่
drug
สุดเนี่ย
producers are the pro-government
ปส
militias,
ที่อยู่กับพม่า
which are allied with Myanmar's own army. They make the most drugs because they can operate in many areas.
For decades, the Myanmar military struck ceasefire deals with rebels and turned them into pro-government militias by giving them more autonomy and turning a blind eye to their illicit activities. A recent raid in a pro-government militia territory uncovered 2 meth labs capable of producing 10 tons of meth. Among the $7 million of lab equipment, they found a pill stamp with the infamous WY, the same as the pills the dealer we met was selling. Back in Thailand, I tracked down Japet Dakri. From the Lahu ethnic group, he led a militia aligned with the government. Now he lives in exile. Japet says fighting alongside the Myanmar military cost him his leg. He says he was never involved in making drugs, but admits tax from drug trafficking was a source of income for his people. In his day, the drug being trafficked was heroin.
There are rules about how much and where you have to pay. Whenever they cross into our territory, they need to pay.
More than 20 years later, he says the meth business operates the same way.
The plan is to make sure you stay in the car.
At great risk, he offers to take us to meet a current militia leader in pro-government militia territory. We agree to meet at a border town called Tachilik. Thai authorities call it the hub of meth trafficking.
We're now officially in Tachilet, Myanmar.
It's a dangerous 2-hour journey for Japet. He's made a lot of enemies here.
Are we now in paramilitary areas?
Yes, yes. And you look at the main room, this part, this part, Lahu,
Lahu. So Akat militia
Malaysia.
and then Lahu militia.
Yes, yes. All this road is
He says many of the militias here are involved in trafficking.
So where we just passed, we paid tax,
Yeah, yes, yes.
was to the drug lord.
We pass through more than 4 pro-government militia territories. It's not safe for us to make too many stops. Japet says the new roads have accelerated the meth trade.
Only few truck amphetamine from the mountain come pass through the mountain. Most that come on the road.
They use the main roads now.
Yeah, just the
Meth labs have been discovered just a few kilometers off this highway. But this is as close as we can get without risking our safety. We arrive at a village run by the pro-government militia. Japet warns us not to ask too many questions. Like Japet, this leader says his village would not survive without allying with the government. The harassment may have stopped, but the village still has to find a way to earn money.
only volunteers.
I broach the sensitive topic of methamphetamines.
How are they getting their drugs?
Yo, get it over Joe.
Japet makes light of a tense situation, and it's time to leave. Back in the van, Japet insists that providing safe passage for drug traffickers is one way for these poorer ethnic groups to survive.
If a drug gang trafficking, they give tax. They have to give tax. But if you help them, God, you get much more money.
But for Japet, the real culprit is the Myanmar military.
In short, as long as the Myanmar military exists, drugs will continue to exist. From generation to generation, for fugitive drug kingpins, Myanmar has been the only place where they have found safe haven. The only place they can hide.
101 East made multiple attempts to contact Myanmar's Drug Enforcement Division, but received no reply. In the capital, Yangon, John Whalen agrees it's likely military officers turn a blind eye to the meth trade, but doubts they are manufacturers.
Is the military directly involved in the meth trade? Unlikely. Are they allowing it to occur in their areas of operation? Yeah, they are.
It's a deadly cycle. Drugs fund the wars, and the wars provide the perfect camouflage to keep the drugs flowing.
The narcotics trade, the meth trade, certainly fuels the conflict. Proceeds from the narcotics trade are used to fund militia groups, providing weapons, providing food, pay the soldiers, and so forth. So that's certainly not helpful to the peace process.
Myanmar's civil wars, lawlessness, and corruption have created the world's biggest meth problem. From little red pills to tons of crystal meth, there are incredible profits to be made because of the unrelenting demand. And where there's demand, there will always be supply.